This vlog is about. It's about last night. There was a homeless sleep out. People sleeping out. Excuse me. That's not a code. Yeah. So yeah. How come there's 320,000 people homeless in the UK and there's nothing they can do about it? The powers that be can't solve homelessness. Homelessness is easy sorted out. It's called using a big dollop of common sense. And sometimes you may have to waive laws to deal with homelessness. Because basically there's the problem is going to get bigger and bigger. There's a lot of people now who will never ever they'll be they'll be starting work soon, right? Yeah, the first time, and they will never ever in their life be able to buy a house, which means they will have to pay 40, 50 years of their life paying rent, which will cause poverty. And there'll be situations when they won't be able to actually pay any rent at all. They will have rent arrears, debt. There's still not a cure for people being in long-term debt. It's easy to get credit, but when you mess up with your credit, or you can't then borrow, there's no answer to actually how do you get people out of debt. They haven't got a clue. So homelessness, yeah, people who can't pay a mortgage to buy a house, and also who can't afford to pay rent. It needs sorting. Big time. The way of sorting out homelessness, and okay, I speak with. If I never had a car when I was in my rent arrears, I'd have been homeless. The council have no recognition of a person's van life expenses, and basically a lot of people are actually living in vehicles, living in vans, living in cars because they cannot afford to pay rent. And because that's the case, universal credit has to should be made to recognise van life, and that if a person lives in a van, they have accommodation expenses, which is their insurance and everything else that goes with a vehicle. It costs of actually living in a vehicle. That should be a recognised cost with universal credit, but it's not at the moment. They don't recognise it. So what do you think happens when people are on the phone to universal credit? In the last assessment period, you've more. Forget assessment periods. Deal with the current situation. The current situation is the person is on the phone to universal credit because they have no money, no accommodation sometimes, and they need accommodation within the next couple of hours. Oh, we might be able to send you to a night shelter if there's a space. They need permanent accommodation, and if they want to live the van life lifestyle, they should be allowed to live it. Which means if you've got a warehouse gone bust on a retail park, whatever, and it's got a car park, allow people that are homeless to live in a vehicle, a second-hand vehicle, like a cheap van, 1,500 quid, £2,000, whatever, yeah. Because you're going to pay, at least the council's going to have to pay, or universal credit is going to pay. If they're out of work for a year or can't afford accommodation for a year, they're going to pay over £5,000 to pay to a landlord for them to accommodate them. You might as well just pay 1,500 quid to buy a second-hand van that has heating. The emissions are good for the heating, for the heater to work. It gives shelter from the rain, the wind, the cold, and gives a bit of a sound system which is like entertainment, and just put a dongle in for internet. Okay, well, you should be allowed to actually take out the passenger seat of a vehicle and the rear passenger seat of a vehicle, and you've got from the front dash cupboard thing, yeah, from there to the boot, and I'm looking now, is 6 foot. They should be especially adapted. If you're a disabled person, years ago there was a specially adapted, and there is now, specially adapted vehicles that have controls for people to use that can't use the normal controls. And that's it. It's specially adapted. It cost a lot of money back in the day. They probably still do now. For a homeless person, there should be specially adapted vehicles where the passenger seat and the passenger rear is just one 6-foot bed, single bed, which means they can sleep and get a decent rest at night. And they should have like a free Greggs card, which gives them access to any Greggs for breakfast, dinner, or tea. Coffee, soup, porridge, whatever, or a salad roll, salad baguette, or whatever, or anything, or vegan, whatever it is they want. Everything is there for Greggs at a reasonable price. It's cheaper for the council to do that, and Universal Credit to do that, than it is to keep paying landlords thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. And it solves homelessness. Because at the moment, with 320,000 people, they reckon it's homeless. People dying like flies for being homeless. Because the council just haven't got a clue. When the person phones up, yeah, and says they've got no money or they need what, the answer is you need to, they can't even actually transfer a phone call from job seekers allowance to Universal Credit, which effectively was one department, which is now another, which is doing the same job. They can't even transfer a call. They're that useless. And there's people dying like flies from homelessness. And people are homeless. Any car park now that is actually from a closed business, even like the supermarket car park, should be made available for people to park, homeless people, to park a vehicle overnight in a designated space in that car park, with about 2 or 3 spaces around it for privacy. In a van, you've got privacy, and there are half decent vehicles these days. That should happen, and it should happen fast, because if it's not, we'll have millions of people homeless, and they just haven't got a clue. Because when you put the phone down, when a Universal Credit person puts the phone down on a person needing help, where do they go? It's not sitting with advice. Oh, here's a load of advice for you. You can't pay rent with advice. You can't pay for food with advice. You need cold, hard cash, like Dragon's Den style. Big wads of the thing. Facebook can sort homelessness out within about 7 days max, globally, as can Google. And it wouldn't cost them a penny to do it. And people are now doing it via YouTube and Facebook advertising dollars of their own accord, using their own advertising dollars to help people out. Because if they go for the Universal Credit option, they haven't got a chance for homeless people. And even now, I've got to actually have a conversation with my insurance, because I've had a difficult year this year. And this is actually paid on the dot every single month. And sometimes a person can't afford to pay it on the dot. And if you live in a car, it's an accommodation expense anyway, so it shouldn't even be out of the person's expense on Universal Credit. But van life is not recognised by Universal Credit, which is creating hundreds of thousands of problems.